What if I told you that some promises never die? That even when decades pass and everyone believes the story is over, time itself finds a way to keep a heartbeat alive? This isn't a legend or a tale from a book. It's something far more powerful. A true story about love, memory, and a golden watch that refused to stop ticking. For 50 years, it lay buried beneath the roots of an old oak tree, hidden from the world. Until one ordinary day, it started ticking again. And when it did, it brought back not just the sound of time, but the voice of someone long gone. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will remind you that love doesn't fade. It simply waits for the right moment to be heard again. The snow that Christmas Eve fell softly, like a secret being whispered by the sky. It blanketed the streets of Maple Hollow, a quiet little town that seemed untouched by time. Inside, Henderson's Jewelers, the faint ticking of dozens of clocks filled the air. A symphony of seconds, each one marking the heartbeat of someone's story. Robert stood near the counter, his rough hands clutching a handful of coins. He was young, barely 20, and his overalls still smelled faintly of oil and metal from the mechanic's shop. His paycheck wasn't much, but he wasn't here to buy luxury. He was here to buy meaning. His eyes stopped on a golden pocket watch. It wasn't large or extravagant, but there was something about it. Simple, elegant, eternal. He turned it over, and inside the lid, engraved in tiny cursive letters, were the words, "For every second we share." That was it. The perfect gift. Later that night, under the glow of Christmas lights, Robert met Claire by the frozen lake. The world around them was silent, save for the wind's quiet hum. When he handed her the watch, she smiled. That kind of smile that stays in your memory, even when everything else fades. "So that you'll never forget me," he said, his voice soft, unsure. She laughed gently. "Forget you? I couldn't, even if I tried." They stood beneath the old oak tree, the one that had been theirs since childhood. That night, they made a promise. "No matter where life takes us," Claire said, "no matter how many years pass, we'll meet here again." And he answered, "Every second, until then, will be for you." The war took him away the next spring. The trains left Maple Hollow with the sound of steam and tears. Claire ran beside the platform until she couldn't keep up, her scarf fluttering in the wind as he waved goodbye. In the beginning, letters came regularly. Robert's handwriting was hurried but full of life. He wrote about the people he met, the stars over the camps, and how he still kept her photograph in his breast pocket. Every night, Claire would sit on her bed, the golden watch ticking on her nightstand, and she would read his words until she fell asleep. Then, one day, the letters stopped. Weeks turned into months. The silence was louder than any explosion. Claire went to the post office every morning, hoping, praying. Then, one afternoon, she saw two soldiers walking up her front path, the kind of visit every loved one dreaded. "We're sorry," one said quietly, removing his cap. "Private Robert Hayes, missing in action." The world dimmed. Claire clutched the watch that night until her fingers ached. It was still ticking, even as her heart seemed to stop. From that day forward, she never let it leave her sight. But one morning, years later, the ticking stopped. She placed it inside a box, wrapped it in cloth, and put it away. And every year, on the anniversary of his disappearance, she returned to the oak tree, just in case. Half a century later, the oak tree still stood tall, its roots like veins gripping the earth. Maple Hollow had changed. Supermarkets replaced corner stores. Laughter from new generations echoed through the park. But for Claire, time had stood still. She was 78 now. Her steps were slow, her cane steady. Yet every Sunday afternoon she walked the same path to that tree. To others she looked like a sweet old woman feeding birds. But to her she was keeping a promise. That day the park was quieter than usual. She noticed a young man digging near the roots, a volunteer helping with the town's restoration project. He looked focused, brushing away soil carefully. Then something caught the sunlight, a glint of gold beneath the dirt. The man paused, his brow furrowing. He bent down, reached in, and lifted a small mud-covered object. When he wiped it clean, he saw the inscription, "For every second we share." Claire froze, her breath caught. The young man, noticing her expression, approached gently. "Excuse me," he said, voice soft. "I found this under the roots. Does it belong to you?" Her trembling hands reached for the watch. When her fingers touched it, she felt warmth, as if it had been waiting for her. The watch was aged, but intact. The chain had darkened, but the engraving was still clear. Claire pressed the button, expecting silence, but the lid opened, and inside, the second hand moved. Still ticking, after 53 years. She gasped, tears filling her eyes. "It can't be. It stopped decades ago." Daniel, that was his name, shook his head in disbelief. "It's ticking, ma'am. Perfectly." The two of them stood there, listening. The ticking seemed louder than it should have been, as if the whole park had gone quiet just to let them hear it. Claire whispered, "He told me once that time wouldn't win. That love would." Daniel felt a chill. He didn't know why, but it was as if the air around them carried something sacred. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She placed the watch beside her on the table, and its steady rhythm filled her room. The sound seemed to echo inside her, a pulse from another time. The next morning, she called Daniel. "There's something I need to check," she said. They went back to the oak tree. Daniel dug carefully where he had found the watch, this time a bit deeper. After several minutes, his shovel hit something metallic, a small tin box, rusted and barely holding together. Inside was a folded piece of paper wrapped in wax. The handwriting was faint but unmistakable. Claire's hands trembled as she unfolded it. She didn't need the light to recognize it. It was his. Daniel read softly, his voice shaking. "If you find this, tell Claire I made it home. I was hurt, but I found my way back. I buried the watch beneath our tree so she'd know I kept my promise. If I don't make it, tell her time never beat me." Claire pressed the letter to her chest, sobbing quietly. "He came home," she whispered. "He came back." Daniel stood beside her in silence. It was a sacred moment, the kind you don't interrupt. From that day, everything felt lighter for Claire. The watch never left her bedside. She would wind it gently every night, listening to its heartbeat before falling asleep. Sometimes she talked to it, as if Robert could still hear her. Neighbors said she seemed more peaceful, happier. There was a glow about her, like someone who had finally received the closure she'd been waiting her whole life for. Then, one winter morning, Daniel stopped by to visit. The curtains were drawn, the lights off. A neighbor met him at the door, her eyes gentle. "She passed last night," she said, peacefully in her sleep. On her nightstand was the golden watch, still ticking. In her other hand, a folded note. "Please bury the watch beneath the oak so it can keep ticking. For us both." Daniel wept as he carried out her final wish. Beneath the same roots that had hidden it for decades, he placed the watch and covered it with earth. And just before the last bit of soil fell, he thought he heard it. The faint sound of ticking, soft and steady, like a promise renewed. Years passed. The town of Maple Hollow changed again, but the oak tree remained. Children played under its branches, unaware of the secret buried beneath. Daniel often visited, sometimes with his own children. He told them the story of the watch, the love that outlasted war, loss, and time. His daughter once asked, "Daddy, how can a watch still tick after all that?" He smiled. "Because some promises don't run on batteries, they run on love." Every so often, when the wind rustled through the leaves, Daniel could swear he heard it, faint but clear. The watch was still ticking. We spend our lives racing against the clock, afraid of how little time we have left. But maybe time isn't our enemy. Maybe it's just the keeper of our memories, waiting for the right moment to remind us of what truly lasts. Robert and Claire's story wasn't about loss. It was about connection, the kind that doesn't fade when years pass or hearts stop beating. The kind that proves that love, once real, becomes eternal. Perhaps somewhere in your life, there's something like that watch, something that stopped long ago, waiting for you to find it again. And maybe when you do, you'll realize that it never really stopped ticking. Because love doesn't end when time runs out. Sometimes, that's when it truly begins. How many moments have we buried beneath the weight of time? How many promises, memories, or dreams have we left behind, thinking they were gone forever? Maybe time never truly takes them away. Maybe it just hides them, waiting for the day we're ready to rediscover what really matters. If this story touched your heart, take a moment. Think about the people, the memories, the seconds that still mean something to you. Because somewhere in your own life, there's a watch still ticking, a promise that's waiting to be remembered. Subscribe to Golden Lane, where every story reminds us that love doesn't end when time runs out. It's only then that it truly begins.